So I haven't done one of these in a while, but something happened today that I kind of wanted to talk about for a second. And we had some kids over, and all of our kids, were playing, and they were playing a game of freeze tag. And I noticed that there was a lot of arguing happening. So I called all the kids into the living room and had them stand there, and I said, okay, what are the rules of the game? So they all started talking at once. So I said, no, you tell me what the rules are. So they kind of went down the line one by one and they kind of discussed the rules. And the rules in freeze tag are pretty defined, right? There's one person who's it, and that person is chasing all the other people in like kind of a chaotic fashion. And when the person who is it tags one of the people who's not it, they have to freeze. And that rule was very clearly defined. And the next rule that they had come upon was that in order to now in freeze tag, all the other people who are not it, depending on the rules that you're playing by, they can unfreeze the person if they can get around the person who's it and tag the person who is frozen, right? And in order to make the game a little more challenging, they had all agreed upon a rule that in order to unfreeze someone, you had to tag them on the arm, but the person who was it could tag you anywhere. So these are some pretty clearly defined rules. And so then I asked, okay, let's say that the person who's it tags everyone. How do you determine who's it then? And they said, well, we've been doing the not it thing. And I was like, oh, okay. And so the not it thing is not it, right? And I'd heard this going on for quite a while where they were all yelling over and over and over again. They'd be like, not it, and like nose-ghosing it, right? But the problem is that there was no determination as to who said it last. Because usually in the not it game, it's the last person to say not it that is then it. And the problem was that they weren't, well, one, they hadn't agreed upon this kind of rule. It had just kind of come about, right? All the other rules were agreed upon. And they were simple, they were defined, they were clearly articulated, and everyone who was playing agreed. The arguing was coming solely from who was the last one to say not it. And since one, it was not clearly defined, it wasn't articulated, and they hadn't agreed upon it, and it wasn't simple, it was causing all sorts of arguments. So having figured this out, I offered a new rule. I said, how about this? How about instead of, doing the not it thing, how about instead the last person to get tagged, the last person to get frozen, is now the person who's it. And everyone's unfrozen. And then you just go back to playing. And they were like, okay, that sounds good, right? And so they go off and boom, they're off to the races. And they're playing like crazy and not a single argument's coming out. And they're just yelling and screaming and running all over the place, being nutso. And the game is just going, right? And a few minutes later, one of the kids yells, this is so much more fun. And all the other kids are like, yeah. And they're just going and they're just having a good old time until they're just so exhausted that they're done playing freeze tag. And I thought that was really, really interesting. And it made me think about life. I believe that life is a game. It's a big, huge, infinite game. Kind of like freeze tag, right? Where you're going to play freeze tag. There is no end. There's no definitive winner of freeze tag, unless you're agreeing to play only one iteration, maybe two, or best two of three or whatever. And then you're introducing all these new rules, and they're fairly arbitrary, right? The purpose of freeze tag is to just have chaotic, taggy fun for as long as you can until everyone just decides that they're done. The best way to play freeze tag is almost like it's an infinite type of game, right? Where the whole goal is to perpetuate the game for as long as you can. And that's what life is. Life is an infinite game. And the goal is to enjoy as much of it as you can. I really believe that. We should be enjoying as much of our lives as we possibly can. And so how do we do that? Well, we have to define the rules of our game. We have to define the rules of our game. And the rules need to be simple. They need to be well articulated. They need to be agreed upon. So anyone else that we want to play this game with us, They need to be able to agree with the rules that we're playing by. Now, I would add additionally, since life is a much longer journey than freeze tag, and suffering is an essential aspect of everything, like every part of life, right? Our lives are in many ways defined by the suffering we endure. I believe the rules need to be moral and ethical as well, right? So the reality is that it is these rules that will define your life. The rules that you and I live by, the rules that we profess, and the rules that we actually act out. Those are going to define our lives. And the quality of the rules are going to have a direct, immediate, and lasting effect on the quality of the game that we are playing. And so I want you to take some time. I want to invite anyone who's willing to listen to this to take some time to think about the rules that you live by. Are they simple? Are they well articulated? Are they moral and ethical? And is there a group of people that agrees with your rules and plays with you? If not, and finally, do you follow your own rules? Super important, right? Because as all the kids are playing freeze tag, all it takes is one person in that game who decides that they're going to play a completely different game, and the game is no longer fun. They decide that no, I'm not frozen anymore. They start cheating, right? Purposely breaking the rules in an effort to win. Again, there is no winning freeze tag, right? It's just having almost spontaneous running, racing fun for as long as you can, and everyone's going to be it eventually. And if one person is constantly like being it, that's no fun, right? And it's the same in your own life. If you profess a set of rules and they're good rules and they're ethical rules and other people agree upon them, and you start cheating, well, the impact is going to be immediate. Not the least of which will be the impact in yourself, because you will not be living in integrity. The beauty of life, though, is that you can always start obeying the rules again. And if your rules aren't clearly defined, if there's a ton of vagary, right? Like they're it, not it rule, right? You can fix that. You can fix that issue. I think the final principle that I would share is that sometimes it takes talking to someone else to fix the issue. Those kids were never going to figure out why they were arguing. They just were arguing. In fact, it never even occurred to them to ask, why are we arguing? What is causing the distress in our society, in our group? Because of that, they would have never fixed the issue. It would have just been a continual downward spiral into chaos and anger and frustration until nobody wanted to play, and nobody wanted to play with each other. It's the same in your life. Okay? It is the same in your life. There are going to be times, and maybe those times are right now, where you can't figure out why nothing's going right. You can't figure out why everything's so challenging. What is going on right now? And maybe you don't even know that there's something wrong. You're just in this state of mental distress, emotional distress, anxiety, anger, depression, what have you. And you can't seem to find your way out. That was kind of like the little microcosm of what these kids were experiencing. And it required someone outside of their environment, someone who lived a little bit more life, who had a little bit more education and a little bit more reasoning ability, to call them all together, to talk about their issue, and to figure it out with them. That is not weakness. It is not weakness. It is strength. And it was beautifully articulated by these kids, by these children, because they immediately responded. They implemented the new rule, and they were having more fun than they were ever having before. So again, my invitation for you today, examine the rules in your life. Are they working for you? Are they clearly articulated? Are they simple? Are they moral and ethical? And are people playing with you? Are you experiencing some distress, some anger, some anxiety, some frustration? Do you need someone to work through your rules with you? I offer myself, but I'm also not like the font of wisdom, right? I am for these little kids, but I'm not necessarily for you. So maybe I'm not the right person for you to talk to, but maybe I am. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. I love y'all. I love every single person who hears, listens to, reads this video, or reads the comments, right? I care about you. And that's why I do this. I'm grateful for you. And I hope that you have a beautiful, full, infinite game life filled with excitement, happiness, and success. Thanks, and have a great day.